Hey, what's up, y'all? Matt here with Hatch and another episode of Built By. Episodes like today are my absolute favorite because I get to dive in and pick the brain of somebody who's actually done it. Somebody who's actually built a home improvement business from scratch to $5+ million annually. And I guess one of my favorite parts of this is because they're always so open to sharing, how they built their business, obstacles they had to overcome, the things that they did to get them to where they are now. They're an open book and it's just so fun to talk to them. You can feel the passion and stuff. And today is no different at all. So my guest today is Greta Bajrami Verde. She is the owner and CEO of Golden Group Roofing, which is located in Boston, Massachusetts. Her story in of itself, like I said, is amazing. She immigrated to America from Albania. She dropped out of law school when she found out she was having a daughter. And then she started a roofing business. Little to no experience. She had a little experience in the industry, but she started a roofing business and she's grown it to over $6.5 million. And the most fascinating part about the story is that she didn't do all of this in the traditional sense that we think you have to start a home improvement business. She took a different route. She didn't hire canvassers to go knock on doors. She didn't hire sales reps to go plaster neighborhoods. She made a concerted effort early to go heavy into the marketing side. And I mean, the results speak for themselves. Growing a $5+ million company in the short time span of like 5 years is crazy. So I don't want to take too much longer with this intro because there's a ton of good stuff in here and you're really going to enjoy it. And I think you're going to get a lot of insights from somebody who took a different approach to things. And like she says, like, it doesn't mean that her approach is better than anyone else's. It's just she took a different route and she came to the same success that a lot of other companies have. So I think there's a lot of stuff in here that you can take and apply to your business and start thinking about how you can leverage a couple of different levers that it doesn't have to be the traditional way. So I'm going to go ahead and kick this episode off. Again, this is Greta Bajrami Verde. She is the CEO and owner of Golden Group Roofing up in Boston, Massachusetts. I know you're going to enjoy this one. This is a podcast for home improvement and home services marketing. This is Built By.
But you've got to be adaptable. You've got to find a way to accommodate an uncomfortable customer.
If you're not getting the home advisor leads in the first 5 minutes, you shouldn't even do it.
Hopefully we're eating their lunch while they're trying to get back up and running.
Perfect. I'm glad to be here. Thanks for having me on your show. A little bit about me. My name is Greta Bajrami. I was born and raised in Albania, Tirana, Albania to be exact. Long ways from here. I migrated to the United States with my parents when I was just 9, almost 10 years old. And I came to, find the American dream, just like every other immigrant that looks at America on TV or on the news. It's the land of opportunity, the land that you can make yourself out of anything. So that's exactly, as a kid, that's all I wanted. I wanted to become a lawyer. I wanted to seize the American dream. And I worked really hard to obtain those goals. But sometimes life has a different plan for you. And it did for me as well. So I had to divert and find a new path. I was a little bit untraditional than most. My first year into law school, I actually found out I was pregnant with my daughter, Kiara. Huh. And so that meant detouring. And it meant that I had to grow up overnight and make some tough decisions. And one of those decisions was that I no longer saw that law would work for me. I'm not saying that law and motherhood don't go together. I just knew that for me to be a young mom and try to raise my daughter, try to work with my partner to raise our daughter together and go to law school was just not going to work. So I decided to unenroll and I re-enrolled in business administration. And just like everybody else, I went through the everyday notions of school, work, and trying to raise my family. And when I graduated college, it was another hurdle to overcome because I realized that not many people were hiring, especially recent grads, and not recent grads that had time restrictions, with daycares. So I remember Craigslist.org was a very big website during that time. People used to sell stuff on there. And then they used to also list like random jobs. So I had previously used it to get serving jobs throughout college. So now I went back on there and one day I saw $200 to $300 pay for roofing foreman. And I was like, oh, this is great. I'm a very young 21-year-old and all I'm doing is grabbing a paper and pen and I'm saying, 200, 300 times 7 times, every day possible in the year. Great. This is a great money. So I ended up applying for the job, and I got the job. And I think I only got the job because I think they weren't expecting to see somebody polished. Not that roofers aren't polished, but maybe I overdid it. I went with all the things I had learned in business school, like show up with a suit, dress really nice, pitch yourself in like less than a minute. So that's what I did. And I got the job, and long story short, what should have been just a means to get myself moving and have some income to pay my bills ended up being an industry where I was 3 years into, every day seeing a need and seeing a way that I could do it differently. And it ended up becoming a passion. And I'm very raw about that and authentic. I don't think I woke up wanting to be a roofer. I think roofing found me. Quite literally, I say saved my life. And then I found a way to stay in it because I found things that I'm very passionate about within the industry. And that's my story. And that's how Golden Group was born. Golden Group was born because once I had already invested 3 years into this industry, I felt that it wasn't right for roofing and for me to depart so early, not when I saw so many things that I could improve and do differently for the people, the homeowners, right? Because I always tell people that a roof is a need, it's not a want. So we're very different than kitchen remodelers. We're very different than, some of these HGTV gals and girls that you see out there. So
Yeah.
We're a need, meaning that sometimes I'm entering the homeowner's home and they're going through really tough financial situations. Maybe they're going through experiencing a death. Maybe they're experiencing a divorce, whatever it may be, but they're still getting the roof done. So I realized that that's where I was special. And the way I handled these people was what was special about me. And that's why Golden Group was born.
Yeah, that's awesome. It's interesting. There's this theme, in your background of like diverting and doing something different than everyone else. And if you look at Golden Group Roofing, it's kind of the same story, right? You took a completely different approach to building this business. And I believe that you're, 5 million plus, annually. Some things are going well. I'd love to dive in there a little bit. Tell me a little bit about those first days when you were getting things going with Golden Group. Like what did you do differently?
I mean, the first days were horrible. Let's be real. I only have my mom and my dad in the United States, and I have no family, relatives, cousin, uncles. So that right there was tough in its own. I didn't really have anybody that could share a post and say, like my niece's new roofing company, so I didn't have that, and I didn't have a lot of other things going for me. And I also didn't have a lot of friends because remember what I said, like I had spent most of my life trying to survive and raise my daughter and go to school. So I didn't have even many friends, which is sad to say. I have friends now.
With successful friends,
yeah. But, so those early days were tough. It was a lot of things that trying to see what we could do differently. Like I said, I knew I didn't have the friends. I knew I didn't have a lot of things going for me. So what could I do differently? So at an early stage, I looked at online. I grabbed my laptop, a very cheap laptop at the time, and I said, what could I do differently? And I did a WordPress site like any great entrepreneur would do, with a beautiful logo that I made myself. And, I put up the site and I was like, we do roofing. I should probably find a copy of that somewhere online. And it was like the most hideous site in the world, but I kept pouring my heart into it. And I was like, I hope people see it. And then the next thing I did in those very early days was like, what am I going to do? And I was like, well, I want to do roofing, and I want to do only one type of roofing. I want to be the best at it. And that was a very bold decision to make very early on, because very early on, you don't have revenue, you don't have clients, and your gut instinct is to take anything and everything just to get your engine started. Yeah. But I knew that I wanted to do one thing and do it well. And I think knowing that and knowing that I wanted to be online and I wanted to make friends from all over the world and make people love me. Those were the two driving forces in those very early days. And I'm grateful that I discovered that for myself, that I wanted to do one thing and do it right. And I wanted to focus all my energy online because I didn't have those cheerleaders, those foot soldiers out there for me.
Yeah. You see, a problem I think a lot of companies make like in those early stages is that they try to do like way too much. And like, we've all been to restaurants where they've got like tacos, pizza, cheeseburgers.
Yes.
And none of it's going to be good. But you go to like those like fancy restaurants where they have like 2 or 3 things, and you're like, all of these are going to be like fresh and amazing, specialty.
Absolutely.
So I think that was a great, first start there, is like really specializing in something and kind of owning it. So, in those early days, you really focused on marketing, and branding has been a big part of, what you're doing now. Is there any reason why you decided to go this route with like the heavy focus on marketing versus the traditional, canvassing and that sort of thing?
Well, good question. I mean, I just knew that I didn't have the overhead to absorb to bring actual people, right? Like traditional marketing, trade shows, you got to pay for the booth, the equipment, the people. And even if you're standing there, that's a lot of time to sit. And not to say that I didn't do it. I did do it, but I learned very early on that was going to be a way that I was going to get myself burned out, right? Or like when I see canvassers and I'm thinking that's a car, there's an insurance, there's a gas. Sure, like have a higher chance, but maybe if you put just as much effort online, you'd have exactly equal chances, and maybe with an even different type of client. So I realized very early on that the overhead of having people wasting like precious time trying to chase people to do business with was going to be a very tiring approach for my business model. I said, I want to make something that's so unique, so good, so well branded, so cohesive that people love, they watch, and then they crave to do business with. That was like that mentality, right? Like I got this mentality from like a Mercedes-Benz. Like I don't think Mercedes-Benz has to sell itself. I think it's just whoever wants it goes to it, and it's a very egotistic approach, I guess you could say. It doesn't necessarily work for everybody because you do have to perfect your craft. Your craft has to be flawless. You have to be 100% transparent. And I'm not just saying that everybody puts on transparent on their website, but what does transparency mean? Transparency mean you, the owner, are always front and center. You're always being featured. You're on your own blogs. Your face is on podcasts like this. You have numbers, real numbers where people can physically hold you, or even a building where they can come and find you, like right now. That's transparency to me. So if you wanted to take this business model where people crave you and they want to do business with you, you have to be in it, right? You have to be willing to invest the time, and you better be crispy clean every time, because people can't see you at a bar after you've shown your face in all these podcasts and all these like guest appearances. They can't see your face being rude or arrogant, right? Because that's going to judge you. They're going to judge you. So for me, it was a very strategic type of branding that I realized very early on. I wanted to create this feeling where we didn't have to go to the client came to us.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Also, you mentioned Mercedes-Benz, and that actually is a great segue into my next kind of question, which is, looking at your website, you have all these like really cool ideas, tools. You've got, the online estimation where a homeowner can pick the time and the service, and there's a brief description of each service. Really cool. You've also got like the roofing calculator where they can get an idea for cost before they come. That all these things are so fascinating to me. And it sounds like, what I'm interested in learning is, are you looking at the industry and what others are doing? And it sounds like you're looking at other industries. You're comparing yourself more to like the Apples of the world versus, what other roofers are doing.
Yeah, you caught on to that. That's great. No, that's exactly what I'm doing. I'm actually not comparing ourselves to our industry. I'm comparing ourselves to our users and what they're enjoying in all across other industries. Like, so we're seeing a trend where users are really enjoying booking open table, right? Like I actually I'm sorry to say this, but sometimes I will choose only restaurants that are on open table because the convenience that I could do it in between a meeting without having to wait on the phone call, right? So if people, and I'm watching these behaviors, I'm saying, why not in roofing? Why aren't people thinking the same way? Or sometimes people just want to know the price, right? Like, how much is this vacation going to cost me? What's this hotel going to cost me? Like, how much is this haircut? People want to know the prices. So how can we as roofers bring the prices to the homeowner as well? Now, I will say that it's not for everybody. It is a little risky because I'm also giving the price to my competitors, but with risk comes reward. And if my competitor is looking at that, then that's fine. And because I know that out there there's a buyer and there's a client that's looking at that as well. And that's the person who I'm going after. I'm going after the buyer. I'm not going after the competitor. And we actually had to gate it because we were getting so much spam with competitors that we had to gate it. So now when you use a roofing calculator, you do have to put your information in, but I promise there's no solicitation involved. It's just doing that because we would get so much spam from competitors using it. Like when they were meeting with clients to probably see like what we would charge that person. So
Yeah.
we had to gate it, and we had to gate it a little bit, and it only allows you to do 3 attempts with one IP before it like times you out. But again, we had to do those because our industry is still such a long way from there. But I say, when you give knowledge to the consumer, you're only building a better positioning. You're almost becoming the leader at the top of the chart, and you're in a completely different lane than everybody else.
Yeah, yeah. As a like homeowner myself that's gone through this process, I appreciate that roofing cost calculator so much, because I remember the classic, they wrote it on a piece of paper and slid it over the table, like shady, like mafia stuff. It's like, I don't trust them at all. So that's really cool that you're doing that experience. And there's also another thing that I heard recently. I think you were talking on another podcast about you want to kind of transform that brick and mortar mindset of a showroom, and you want to have kind of a different approach there. So this is another thing where you're comparing yourself to Tesla. Can you talk a little bit about that and kind of what your plans for that are?
Yeah, I have really big plans, and if other roofers hear this, please, by all means, use it. I think we have to bring people to, people feel really shy about opening up their homes to roofers all the time. Think about it. Might be a single mother. Maybe she has to like clean to get ready for you. Maybe there's laundry. People have a lot of insecurities, and some people just don't feel comfortable at all having you in their space. So I said to myself, well, how can we bring people to our space? Of course, we do it successfully in our offices, but how can we take it a step further with the technology that we have? And can we partner? Is there a room to partner up with brands like Hover, Eagle View, all these solar companies? Like, is there a way to partner up? And I, through research, I realized there is a way. There is a way that we can bring components of technology and have people walk into these 3D rooms that have like touch feel of old school products, but more importantly, have these 3D models where they have these mega touchscreen TVs where they can play with their home, they can pull up their home, they can play with it, they can design it, and then they can say, oh my God, my house could look like this. This could be my house, and only for this much money, or there is this incentive, with this program. I didn't know this. And then, they're welcome to have a cup of coffee and talk with somebody should they want to. But if they don't, they can just walk right out. It was still a cool experience for them. They still took something away from it. And again, that's just, opening up our industry. Our industry is very dark. It's very like, meet me in an alley. I'll sell you a roof. And I know people feel that way. And although as roofers, we've done a great job, I think there's still so much more to do. As roofers, we're still using scare tactics. We're still using tactics of like, I'll pay your deductible. We're still using tactics of, if you sign now, I'll lock you in. And as long as those tactics exist, to me, it means that we still have a lot of work to do, because those type of tactics don't exist in hospitality, IT, a lot of other industries. They only exist in our industry. And why? And I think it's because even though we say we're transparent, I don't believe we're anywhere near it.
Yeah. Well, it's the concept of like a rising tide lifts all boats, right? When you've got a few shady contractors out there, it brings everybody down. But if everybody's, kind of adopting some of these, homeowner first policies, I feel like the industry as a whole would really start to be seen a lot higher, in the limelight, I guess.
I mean, we still have people asking if you're insured. And to me, that's a sad question. If there's a roofer listening to me, every time somebody asks, do you have insurance or licensing? And they ask me that, that's a very, like, that question hurts me. I almost like they slap me, because every restaurant needs insurance to operate, right? They need a health inspection. They need, approval to serve the food. So nobody would dare walk into a restaurant that wouldn't have those licensing. So the fact that they have to ask a roofer means that we have a lot of work to do, because it's still something that's asked. Like, people are asking you, do you have a license to drive? Like, that's pretty much what they're asking you. And that's really sad. Because they're saying you look like a guy that shouldn't own a license. Like, you shouldn't be driving. Right. Maybe you have something in your record. So that's, to me, that's sad that's still that shouldn't have to be one of the 12 questions that they ask you. That should have been something that everybody in our industry had or has.
Yeah, that's fascinating, Greta. Kind of shifting a little bit, pivoting, what I'm seeing and what I'm hearing from a lot of, roofers and contractors in general is, business is great right now. That early, the leads are coming in. I think somebody said the other day, if you're in home improvement, you're making money right now. But at the same time, there's always an ebb and flow to these things. So, you as a leader, you're always looking forward. And I can tell because, you're positioning yourself against some of these giants that are always, looking forward the next a year, 2 years. So with, everything being good right now, and if you're open to sharing this,
Yeah, of course, I am.
Are there any strategies or ideas like you're planning on implementing over the next few months to really continue to take advantage of the boom right now, so to speak, to fill your pipeline?
I mean, I've actually done a reverse psychology. I know a lot of companies right now are overspending on leads. They're using this abundance of business to just overspend. I'm seeing more truck purchases. I'm seeing more billboards go up more than ever, which is great. But I'm doing a reverse. I'm still setting a 20% growth. Like I still want to grow this year. Why not? But I'm saying, how can we use these funds now to work on quality versus quantity? I'm more interested with my team bringing 4 or 5 super qualified appointments than 10. So I'm saying, okay, so if the market is super saturated, there's so much clients out there wanting roofs, what can we do as a digital marketing team to bring only the 5 that we want, so we don't waste our time? And so we're doing a reverse. We're actually meeting with less people this month than we were like any other time.
Wow.
But we're also meeting with we're almost picking now, because there's a lot of fish in the sea. So we're going, okay, I want that really big one, that really big one, and that one. You guys can have the rest. So we're using a reverse psychology. The reason we're doing this is because we're trying to save as much of this Yes, you're right. There is a lot coming in, but we're going to save this as liquid capital to keep the company strong, because we don't need to have I'm more obsessed with having consistent growth and having 1 year that's just this amazing growth, but this incredible spending year too.
Yeah.
So, because that's not growth to me. That's just like coming in and going out, and that's good for some companies, but it could also, for a company like us that has always relied on consistency, we want to make sure that we are still keeping that spending at a very measurable and healthy rate. We don't want to overspend just because we have 4 great months of roofing. We don't know what the future holds. So we're going to continue spending like we always have. If anything, we're being more reserved with our savings and with our spending. Because again, I don't think it's necessary. My team asked me too. They're like, oh, we're so busy. Does that mean we can like do the crazy stuff we've always talked about? And I said, no. We're not going to go do those funny billboards that every 5 miles that say something hilarious.
Yeah, that's awesome. Also it's fascinating because I see a lot of people booking out jobs 8 months, and it's harder to really build a relationship with that customer, which is your motto's contractors with a heart, roofing with a heart. So it really comes down to that, like, creating a relationship with the homeowner, and that's how you get that funnel of referrals and repeats later on down the road. So it's a pretty cool approach, is to like not jump at everything that comes out, and focus on the ones that could fill that pipeline later. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I say this, and I said this to a client yesterday in a sign off, because we had a little hiccup, and he loved the way we were handling things, and I said, I'm not obsessed with profit and loss. I'm obsessed with relationships. I really am. Like, I am a little crazy for it. Maybe some people are not. Like, I really want every person to be my friend that buys a roof here. Like, that's maybe a little dramatic on my end, but that's the kind of stuff that motivates me. I'm not motivated by profit and loss on a job. I'm motivated on a relationship with a client on the job. So if that relationship is somehow lost, I'm going to do everything. I don't care if we made money on it. I don't care if we had to lose everything. I'm going to do everything possible to regain that relationship or restore it to a level of at least respect, right? Because I don't want somebody in a community feeling like they don't respect me. That's a really horrible feeling to carry, right? I may be in a coffee shop next month with my daughter. I may be, meeting with another client in their local area. I don't want them to see me and say, oh, like, what a horrible experience I had with that company. I don't want that. So I told the client, what can I do so we are at a level of respect for one another? That it doesn't matter. Like, don't worry about final payments. Don't worry about any of that. Like, let's talk with one another. What can we do? And I don't think a lot of companies, again, say that, but they're not that vulnerable. I think that one of the best traits I have is that I leave myself bare and vulnerable to every client. And I don't ever let however many millions this company has made get in the way of that. I treat it like day one, first client, what can I do to make you happy? And I think that is a virtue that I carry. And I think that's something I'm very proud of to say. You know, I don't like to brag about myself, but that's one virtue that so far has carried me to where I am today and being able to speak with you. And I think if you're out there listening, if you just say to yourself, it doesn't matter, this is my first client, even it might be your 30,000 client, pretend like it's your first client and treat them and go and leave yourself vulnerable in a position where you can make both parties respect each other. Because at the end of the day, you have to, you're the business owner, right? Like, you signed up for a long-term goal. You didn't sign up for just that profit on that job. You signed up for the integrity and the legacy of your brand in the community. Don't get short-sighted with just making money on that particular job.
Yeah, that's fascinating. And, you know, it works because I couldn't find a negative review for your company anywhere online. So you know, creating those relationships really works for sure.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, oh, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, and don't think that there's only been 5-star, you know, experiences. I'm sure there's been 4-star experiences. It's just how we've handled them. We call them 911s in the office, and when there's a 911, it doesn't matter if I'm in New York, I'm in LA, it doesn't matter. Like, if depending on the scale of the 911, I will come back because that's my job. That's what I signed up for. Yeah. That's what being a leader means. It means showing my team that when something goes wrong, it doesn't matter where I am, I have to come back. I have to deal with that client. They don't have to deal with that client. Like, it's my job. That's what I signed up for. And they know that. And I think when you let your team know that you will deal with any problem that goes wrong, they feel that energy and they understand that you are their backbone. You know, I am the backbone of Golden Group, and together we make a team. And when I feel sometimes that salespeople in other companies are left to handle these experiences by themselves, and I just think that's again, it's a very narrow way of looking at it. As the owner, it's your job to handle all the clients. Like, at the end of the day, it's your business. So you signed up for it as a leader, right? Like, no man behind, no soldier behind. Use that military mindset of man down. You got to go and get your men, and that's my job every day.
That's awesome. That's so cool, Greta. I love that philosophy. So I have one last question that I like to ask every guest on here. It could be one thing, it could be two things. It's totally up to you. And it sounds like you might have just answered it already, but it's last tip before we dip. So what's the number one piece of advice or tip you would give to any home improvement owners out there right now?
There's so many, but
I know.
I think the biggest one is authenticity for you. And no slander for others. Like, I feel that there's still a lot of competitors out there that want to get a little bit higher traction by talking bad for somebody else. I've never, in the last 10 years, had to speak ill of anyone. And I think success has always found a way. I have never needed to take somebody else's estimate apart. Success has always found a way. I've never needed to tell a homeowner, cancel with that guy, he's not good. You know, I think that's once be authentic to you, and instead of worrying about how you can defame or slander someone else. I think that's my biggest advice. I think if we all follow it and we truthfully follow it, you know, we will be better people. Because maybe right now you're saying, I don't care, but what if you're in the receiving end? What if somebody's talking bad about you tomorrow? How would that make you feel? I think if we're all authentic and we all have integrity and we all worry about our own relationships with the people that choose to work with us, because it is a choice, they have to choose you, and if they choose you over me, then that's okay, because they made the best choice for their home. And I think if we all use that type of level of respect, our roofing industry and community is only going to become stronger, because it's very easy for young people to get discouraged. And there's a lot of young men and women that are joining the roofing industry, and let's keep them. Let's find unique ways to keep them. And the only way we can keep them is to keep this industry with respect for one another. Because how can we have the homeowners respect us if we don't respect one another? Respect from homeowners can only come when we as roofers, every single person from the roofer on the roof to the office manager, if we respect each other. And that's the only time we're going to have the respect from our consumer. And I think that's my message. Sorry, I make it a little like social and social justice and all that stuff. But I think that's the biggest message, is because sometimes I see young salespeople enter the roofing industry and then they leave. And I ask them, why did you leave? And they're like, I can't handle like the the drama, the bad
Mhm.
talk. Like, I don't like that. I'd rather go sell, in a medical field. I'd rather go sell in IT. I'd rather go sell, in a hospitality industry. So let's keep people employed in roofing. But the only way we can do that is if we respect each other.
Yeah, that's awesome. Authenticity, not slander. It's amazing. I'm gonna get that printed on like a sign, and I'm gonna hang it in our office somewhere. That's awesome. Greta, that was all the questions I had. Thank you so much for joining me today. I
course.
love this episode. There was a ton of good information in here. If anyone is interested in, maybe learning more about you or learning more about Golden Group, where should they go?
Yeah, I mean, you can always email me, Greta@goldengrouproofing.com. I will reply to you, I promise. Or LinkedIn is a great source too. I always make new friends there, and it's great to keep the relationships alive. And then for Golden Group, obviously, it's goldengrouproofing.com. It's also the same on all social handles where you can watch our craziness unfold.
That's awesome. Yeah, I also you can only use the calculator 3 times as a reminder for everyone out there.
Yeah, it's
On
just
the one IP.
when I did it, I wanted it to be endless, but unfortunately, it kept getting too much spamming. So maybe we'll listen to that last message, and we'll get to a level of respect, and then we won't need to do things like that.
Exactly. Awesome. So Greta, thanks so much, and until next time.
Thank you. Of course, thank you.